killed by the mafia someday.
Non posso che morire così. Non posso che essere ucciso.
The only thing I don't know is when.
Che non so.
With Reen at large, Falcone was running out of time. Back in New York, the clock was also ticking for the American Godfather, Paul Castellano. Castellano waited for his trial on racketeering charges. He rarely ventured from his home, this luxurious mansion in the most exclusive area of Staten Island. Enemies and friends alike called it the White House, and Castellano lived like a president. That meant he lost touch with feelings on the street, discontent that would be exploited by his rival, John Gotti.
There's a lot of discontent with Castellano, where they thought he was too involved in his legal trials. He wasn't running the family. It had become a family of the haves and have-nots. Castellano was making all the money. Guys like Gotti were out there starving. So there was a lot of dissension in the family. We knew there was meetings going on, and there was a lot of discontent.
In fact, Gotti posed as a have-not to win support for his bid to become boss. In reality, Gotti was making a fortune dealing heroin, making him a hero to his supporters. The law was onto Gotti's crew for drug dealing. That brought more heat on Castellano. So he planned to break up Gotti's crew. Gotti knew he had to act. The stage was set for a showdown. On December 16, 1985, Castellano headed into Manhattan for a meeting with Gotti. They were to meet here at Castellano's favorite steakhouse, Sparks, in Midtown Manhattan. Outside the restaurant, Castellano and his driver were shot dead. Such a daring public murder shocked New Yorkers. It made the new Gambino boss a celebrity overnight. At the time, Gotti was facing a trial on a charge of racketeering. Until the murder, few outside the world of law enforcement had even heard of Gotti.
We went from having what was really kind of a, not sleepy, but routine organized crime case to the case of the decade. We had huge throngs of reporters outside the courthouse, in the courtroom. We had a big fish on the line.
At his trial, Gotti was defended by flamboyant mob lawyer Bruce Cutler. For many years, Cutler has continued to act as Gotti's apologist.
He had a remarkable insight into others, like a sense, almost a sixth sense, if you will, to size people up.
Gotti could certainly size up a jury. In March 1987, the trial reached its conclusion. Gotti was acquitted of racketeering. But unknown to law officers, a juror had been bribed by one of Gotti's men. Gotti was tried in 2 other cases, both for assault, both defended by Bruce Cutler.
I'll say you with respect to defendant John Gotti, guilty or not guilty?
You find him not guilty.
Each time, the Gambino boss got off. Bribery and intimidation of witnesses saw to that. The nickname, the Teflon Don, was born. Gotti was different from almost any other godfather. He made little secret he was a Mafia Don. and enjoyed that everyone knew he'd risen from Brooklyn poverty to become the boss of bosses.
He was born dirt poor, was on the street since he's 12, was on the cover of Time magazine in his 40s, and he took on the system.
In the opinion of his former attorney, Gotti was a modern-day Robin Hood, standing up to those in power.
Jewish people, Irish people, working people, union people, construction workers, policemen. My father was a detective. Some of our strongest supporters that used to cheer for us were local police, not because they're allowed to, but it was the alphabetized government thugs we fought. The FBI, Internal Revenue, INS, CIA, those faceless, robotic government thugs that come at you and can destroy your life.
The murderous reality of Gotti's brutal reign was very different. Gotti's love of public adoration would be exploited by the FBI and prove to be the Teflon Don's undoing. American mob boss John Gotti loved the limelight, but the head of the Sicilian mafia, Toto Riina, stayed out of sight. Prosecutor Giovanni Falcone was determined to hunt him down. Falcone needed a way of connecting mafia boss Riina to the crimes carried out in his name by his army of killers. The answer was in America. Richard Martin was a leading official in the U.S. Department of Justice. He and Falcone had worked together for years. Their biggest success, breaking the heroin smuggling link between Sicily and the United States, known as the Pizza Connection. Falcone relished his trips to the U.S.
The life that he led in Sicily was almost the life of a prisoner. He went from a bulletproof car to a protected office. Instead, when he came to New York, he could go shopping, he could go to restaurants, he could come to our offices, we could go to our homes and meet our families together. And so for him, New York was like freedom.
Falcone's visits to New York were for more than pleasure. He had been impressed by America's tough anti-mafia laws. Laws that allowed the U.S. government to target mafia boss Paul Castellano and to bust the commission.
I think it also liberated his thinking and allowed him to sort of see beyond his own sort of realm coming here. So I think he not only enjoyed it, but I think it was very good for his vision of the way that he was going to attack the mafia and the way in which he would work with Italian law enforcement.
In 1991, a new justice minister took office in Rome, determined to finally crush the mafia. He offered Falcone a job at the ministry as overlord of the anti-mafia campaign throughout Italy. Falcone jumped at the chance of leaving Palermo and putting into practice the lessons he had learned in the United States. His ideas were revolutionary. An Italian equivalent of the FBI was to be formed. Across Italy, the fight against organized crime would be centralized under Falcone's control. Riina, the beast from Corleone, felt threatened. A few years before, he had failed to kill Falcone at his beach house. Now, Riina would try again. On May 23, 1992, Falcone and his wife Francesca returned to Palermo for the weekend. A few miles from the airport, several of Riina's men had placed a half-ton bomb in a drain pipe under the highway that ran from the airport to the city. The men hid in a building above the road, armed with a remote-controlled detonator. A massive explosion ripped open the highway. The explosion was so enormous, it registered on local earthquake monitors. Giovanni's sister, Maria Falcone, was at home when she heard the news of the explosion.
Sono scappata appena mio marito mi ha detto di che si trattava.
When my husband told me what had happened, I rushed out of the room. I phoned the police. They told me Giovanni had been taken to hospital. When I got there, Francesca's brother told me Giovanni's dead. This was the saddest moment ever. Not only for me as a sister, but also as an Italian citizen. Because we felt that in losing Giovanni, our greatest chance of beating the mafia had gone.
Falcone was not only a colleague, I was proud to think of him as a colleague, but a friend. I was enormously saddened, and it was as if part of what we all worked for had been lost.
Riina reputedly threw a party, toasting Falcone's demise with champagne. Along with Falcone, his wife Francesca and 3 bodyguards were also killed. Thousands gathered at the church of San Domenico in Palermo for the funeral, waiting patiently for hours in the rain. The funeral was broadcast live on national TV. Across Italy, all regular television programs were suspended. Parliament declared a day of mourning.
When they asked me what I did when I heard the news, I said I cried. Someone said, "You're Judge Ferraro. What do you mean you cried?" I replied, "Yes, I cried, and I'm not in the slightest bit ashamed of it."
Italy was shocked and angered. It didn't deter Toto Riina. Anyone who stood in his way would meet a similar fate. In New York, the net was closing in on American Godfather John Gotti. This clothing store in Manhattan's Little Italy was once the Ravenite Social Club, the nerve center of the Gambino crime family operation. Gotti insisted that his crime family visit the Ravenite to pay public homage to him. The FBI had placed a surveillance team